Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Ohio State Sport Management YouTube channel. I'm Joe.
And my name is Emma.
And today's guest is class of 2001 graduate Rachel Newman-Baker, who is currently Executive Associate AD at the University of Kentucky. Thank you for joining us today, Rachel.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Cool. That's so awesome. We'll kind of get right in with our questions today. Can you give us a quick description of your career journey so far and what your current role is at the University of Kentucky?
Sure, absolutely. So I was a basketball student athlete at a little small school in Kentucky, Berea College. Played 2 years there at Berea. Got injured my last year and thought, you know what? I'm not going to the WNBA. I don't have professional aspirations here. And it just so happened that my high school coach, I went to college in the same town that I grew up. My high school coach had an assistant coach opening. And so he came to me and he said, I'd really like for you to be an assistant coach for the girls basketball team here in the state. So I did that. I was an assistant girls basketball coach, little small school that made it all the way to the Final Four in the state of Kentucky. And we don't have classes here in Kentucky. It's like everybody competes against each other. We're very proud of that. There's no different levels.
Cool.
Yeah. So we did that. It was really cool. But what I realized is coaching was not for me. I love the girls and loved the administrative side of it. And so my second year of coaching, I started looking into sport management programs. And at the time, that was a very new field. Not a ton of schools that offered a sport management master's. It was very limited. But obviously got connected with Ohio State. And it was a great decision for me. I went from a school of 1,200 kids at Berea to Ohio State, which I don't even know the enrollment now. 60,000?
It's in the 50s, I think, but it's huge. Small city for sure.
Yeah. So I still say that being able to have both of those experiences just were awesome because you got to see both ends of the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
So worked at Ohio State for 2 years. I had an awesome boss there, Heather Light Catalano, who is now the director of athletics at the University of Pittsburgh. And so Heather came to me my second year as I was finishing up, and she said, I was an intern at the NCAA several years ago, and they've got a program. Think it would be a great opportunity. Think you'd be a good fit for it. So she encouraged me to apply. And so I applied for the NCAA internship program and got it. Worked in enforcement for that year in the internship program. And then at the end of my internship year, I was offered a position in the agent gambling and amateurism area at the time. Mm-hmm. So worked in AGA, as we called it, for several years, kind of worked my way up. And through the years of the NCAA and the different transitions, became the managing director of development and investigations there in enforcement my last couple of years there. So that's how I finished at the NCAA. Decided there towards the end, I was really missing the student athlete connection. Mm-hmm. I also have 2 small children and a husband. And my husband's also from Kentucky. And we just kind of felt that itch to go back home. So was fortunate enough, reached out to Mr. Barnhart here at Kentucky and kind of told him I was thinking about making a transition and wanted to be back on campus with student athletes, and very fortunate that I had an opportunity to do that. So that's how I got here.
That's awesome. Can you give us a little bit more insight into kind of what your day-to-day role is like at UK?
Well, if you figure it out, let me know, because I always say you don't really, there's no script.
Okay.
Role. It's problem solver, I think, is probably what I end up doing on a daily basis more than anything else is trying to solve problems and figure out solutions that are both compliant with NCAA, SEC, and institutional rules, but more than anything are also just the right thing to do. And trying to figure out how you get to that point. So lots of problem solving, especially now with the COVID situation, all the different issues that we've had to work through from a compliance standpoint there as well.
Cool. Thank you.
That's pretty cool. So you started off by saying problem solving as one of the main things that you deal with. So from like past jobs and the current role that you have now, what has been some of the challenges that you faced?
Well, at the NCAA, the challenge was pretty simple. You in enforcement and as an investigator, which is how I started, you're really limited in the tools that you have. Able to develop information. And so what I found was that it's really about developing relationships, because you're only as good as the information that you can cultivate and develop.
Yeah.
And people aren't going to talk to you if you don't have a relationship with them and know them. So I spent a lot of time developing relationships. And frankly, that was really an example that was set for me by Dina Garner, who is the SWA at Arizona State University right now. But Dina is like the master. She's great at being able to develop relationships. And so she was really able to show me how you do that very intentionally. So I think that was probably the biggest challenge there. Here at Kentucky, with what I do, it's the environment is changing so quickly. And so trying to help our coaches, our staff, and our student athletes and their parents adapt to the pace and how things change so quickly.
What's been your most enjoyable moment or part of your role?
Oh, gosh. Well, at the NCAA, I would say probably being able to develop relationships across the country with so many people, with so many schools. I always like to play the connect game, right? Because you can find
around.
That's right. You can find somebody. But there towards the end of my career at the NCAA, I'm pretty confident that I knew at least one person in most of the Division I athletic programs, just through issues and contacts and cases and things that had happened over the years. And so that's probably one of the best parts, is just getting to know all the different people and experiencing all the different campuses and cultures across the country. At Kentucky, gosh, so many, the student athletes, the relationships with them and their families, really getting to know them. Not something you really get to do at the NCAA, right? Because you're a little bit separated and removed.
Yeah.
But that's been awesome. My first 2 years at Kentucky, our men's basketball team made it to the Final Four both of those years. So I went from being at the Final Four every year with the NCAA to my first. I was like, this is what you do. You just go to the Final Four. It's awesome.
Yeah.
That was pretty amazing. And then probably my favorite memory or a moment at the NCAA or at Kentucky was I participated in a service trip with 3 of our football athletes to Ethiopia a couple of years. And that was just completely life-changing and memorable experience. So that by far is probably my favorite.
Those kind of trips are always really rewarding, because you just feel like you get even though you give a lot, you just get so much back, and you're really grateful for the opportunities and the things that you do have, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You mentioned Dina, and you mentioned the person that kind of got you interested in the NCAA internship program. Can you give us an idea of like who has influenced you the most over your career and how they've been able to do that? Gosh,
well, there's just so many people that have done it in different ways, right?
Sure.
So it's hard to, I feel like I owe Heather like a huge debt of gratitude, because she gave me an opportunity to do that. And, she didn't know me. I didn't have any connection to Ohio State. It was just based off of my interview as part of the interview process. And she took a chance and believed in me, and then believed in me to help me get the internship at the NCAA. So she by far she got me started. So she had a huge influence in that. But also I would say Julie Rolash, who is the Deputy Commissioner of the Horizon League. Julie was my vice president at the NCAA, definitely a mentor to me at the NCAA, and I just valued her input. Julie was always honest with me. She was one that, she's going to give you the straight, she's going to shoot you straight and tell you when you need to do better and how. And so that meant a lot to me, helped me grow.
Yeah, those relationships are just maybe the most important thing, I think, in a role like that.
Absolutely.
So you did mention some of the things that you liked about your role, but as in terms of like the highlights thus far in the current role at Kentucky, what could you say has been the best one?
Oh gosh, the highlights. At Kentucky, I'm sorry, or the
At
NCAA?
Kentucky, sorry, yeah, at Kentucky.
At Kentucky, yeah, definitely the Ethiopia trip would be the highlight of my time there. And then, one thing that I think Kentucky does really well, that I would say does probably one of the best in the country of, is not just developing relationships with the kids, but with their parents and their families as well. A lot of time getting to know mamas and daddies and aunts and uncles and cousins and friends. And, it just, we talk about the family at UK all the time, and that family includes not just our coaches, staff, student athletes, but their families as well. And so that's been a highlight too of folks.
Yeah,
And I think as well for that, oh, you go.
Go ahead, Emma. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, especially with like 18, 19-year-olds leaving home, maybe for the first time, the parents just want to know that they're kind of safe and settled down in their new home for like the 4 years that they're there. So that's always good to have.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even at Ohio State, you have 100,000 people at a football game. The players still walk out and meet their parents after the game. It's the same as middle school, high school. It's it's a very, very similar feeling.
Oh yeah, I've been on the sideline before and seeing a player look, and I'm like, "What are you doing? The game's like, what are you doing? The game, my mom. Where's my mom?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I gave her a ticket. I know she's in here."
Yeah, it definitely doesn't become less important. That's for sure.
No.
Kind of changing topics. So name, image, likeness, huge topic of conversation. We talked about it in our business to college sport class this year with Gene. We talked about it in sport law. Kind of every course, it seems like we touch on that. It's definitely a hot topic. Can you give like a short rundown of what the new rules are for the student athlete endorsements and how it's affecting like change in your office and how your office operates?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would start with, we don't have new rules technically.
Okay.
What I would say we have are new philosophies, new guardrails, kind of the direction the working group kind of gave us. Here's the direction that we want you to go in the development of the rules. So the rules themselves are actually being developed now. That will be in January. And I think that's really key, because even though we do have these guiding principles, until you see it and how it's written and what the rationale is and the pitfalls, right? I immediately go to the loopholes of it just based on my background. It is hard to kind of figure out what's this new world going to look like. And so when you ask, what are you concerned about with that? Well, I'm concerned about what are the rules actually going to say? Okay. So I can then try to put my arms around how do we monitor that? What is the expectation of monitoring, and who does that fall to? What level of detail do we need? That's my compliance background, right? So that's where I automatically go. And I think we're still we don't know, because we haven't seen what that's actually going to say yet.
Okay, cool. No, that's a great answer. I have a background in advertising, and my mind goes to who's protecting the kid's brand. Who are they choosing to endorse? Who are they? So my mind really goes to that and protecting their long-term kind of, outlook instead of just that short-term. That's super interesting perspective to get from you.
Absolutely. No, I think that's key. And then, and then who's educating them on exactly what you just said? Because if you're 18, 19, 20 years old and somebody offers you, let's say a local t-shirt company offers you $10,000, but you're really probably worth $25,000 or $50,000. Who's the one that's advising them that, and so that they're really understanding what that true worth is?
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how all that evolves. After you said like the vote is taking place in January and how that evolves after that.
Absolutely.
I feel like you kind of answered my next question, which would be, where would you see the next steps being in terms of the school and for the individual? I think you answered that perfectly. So I guess, Joe, back to you.
Fine. You're fine.
Good.
You kind of touched on this with the parents as well, but when a student athlete signs with a school, let's say UK, and first arrives on campus, what kind of education goes on with regards to learning like the compliance rules? Because I'm guessing it's like a new venture for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things that we do that I think is really cool at Kentucky is, especially with football and men's and women's basketball, because they are what we call summer access sports, right? So they're allowed to have some required time during the summer. We get with those guys right out of the chute, and we have a meeting We meet with their parents too. Actually, last week via Zoom, I met with our women's basketball team and all their parents.
Cool.
We've done the same thing with men's basketball and the same thing with football. We've actually got a football one coming up later this week with a lot of our incomers. And so what we try to do is there's so much information, not overwhelm them with it. Try to really figure out, okay, what's priority? What do they have to know right now? And more than anything, introduce ourselves to them, right? To start that relationship development process. So, they get to know, I tell them right out of the chute, here's my name. I want you to take out your phone right now while we're in this meeting, while we're on this call, and type in my cell phone number into your iPhone. So they've all got my cell phone. I laugh. I say everybody in the state of Kentucky has my cell phone. Which is great. That's fine. but I make sure they have it so that they can use it and, call and really try to focus on that first step being having the dialogue, having the conversation. There's a whole lot of rules. Some of them are crazy. I don't want to see you get by them, right? Yeah, you know.
Yep.
So just, starting that dialogue is what we try to do. And then when school starts, we do it again. But we talk about some different things, go into a little bit more detail. So kind of the goal. And then through the season, we do parent meetings as well on game days. So like with football, we make brunch before a game and bring everybody in, let them grab some breakfast, and then I'll talk to them. We'll take different topics and I'll talk to them about some of the different rules. So just try to, piece it off little by little.
Super interesting.
Okay. So another recent hot topic is the transfer portal. And we just wanted to know, what are your thoughts on this and how has it affected your office?
Yeah, that's a great question because what I go back to is everybody has talked for a long time about the numbers and what those numbers look like, but we didn't really have any way to track all of those different conversations, right? And so I'm not willing to jump out there and say our numbers are so much greater than what they were before, because to me, there's not a comparison. So does it feel like they're a lot more? Maybe a little, but I wouldn't say a lot. But again, that's just based on, right, what we know anecdotally in terms of kids coming in our office, conversations with us. What I continue to harp on about the transfer issue, and I still believe it with all my heart, is we're focused on the wrong part of this issue. I feel like if we focus more time and attention on how do we help kids and their families make the right choice at the beginning
to begin with.
Yeah, and what all goes into that choice, and not just where I like this coach. Well, that's great, but if that coach isn't there, what's that do to your opportunity, and what's that experience? So trying to figure out better tools, better ways that we can help figure out what those good decisions are on the front end, I think will help alleviate the problem on the back end.
I can definitely agree with that. Because there's just, like you said, there's so many transfers. We should rather look at the thing that's causing the issues at the beginning. Hopefully it will lessen the chances of that happening.
Right.
Yeah, your student athletes are lucky that you're taking that perspective on it. That's great. Kind of shifting back to when you graduated undergrad, made a choice to come get your sport management master's degree at Ohio State. What kind of went into that decision? Like, why did you choose to come to Ohio State over some of the other programs that you could have gone to?
Well, do you want the real answer, or do you
100% the real answer?
Well, I had it down to Ohio State and Tennessee, and my husband was in Kentucky and said if I went to Tennessee, he would not come visit me at all if I was there.
It's amazing.
That is true. He did say that. He was very serious. The experience at Ohio State, I think I mentioned, I had a real small school experience, right, at Berea College. And so being able to come somewhere where at the time there were 36 sports and 1,000 student athletes. I don't know how those numbers have
it's about the same.
About the same.
Yeah.
That just, I didn't, to be honest with you, I'd never seen lacrosse ever. I didn't even know what it was. And so just being able to have those kinds of experience, hockey, same thing, I'd seen it. I knew what hockey was, but we didn't have that here. So that was just really, and it was far enough away from home, right? Because I went to college in my hometown, so I didn't leave to college. it was far enough away, but it was still close that I could still get back and forth.
Oh, that's nice.
Interesting.
So kind of piggybacking off what you just said, that it was nice enough that it was far away but close enough that you could go back home. What can you remember any of your like favorite memories from the sports management degree?
But it's so funny. The one memory I have, I don't know if it's my favorite, but it is because I mean it's been 20 years, guys. It's been it's been a while. I remember I had to do a presentation for Dr. Pastore's class. I used to have to walk from the arena to class, right down by the football. I don't even remember what the name of the street is, but by the football stadium down towards where we had our classes. And so I'm in a suit because we're doing a presentation that day, and I'm with the two other people that are in my group because we met there at St. John's and we were going to walk down. And it's pouring rain.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
And they're doing construction on the football stadium that year too. Okay. So there's construction stuff up everywhere in gates. So we're walking and I get my heel stuck in a grate, like on the way. And so my classmates are literally down in the grate trying to get my shoe out. So we had like this whole big drama and present. So I don't know that it's my favorite memory, but it clearly is one that sticks out to me.
Stuck, yeah.
And those guys, those two guys that were with me as part of my group, I still keep in touch with them today.
Oh,
Lots of good friendships from that class that year.
That's great to hear. What's your advice to incoming grad students in the program, and how can they, start to, one of the points of grad school is to kind of start getting experience in what you really want to do with your career. How do you suggest they kind of go about getting some experience in compliance, let's say, if that's part of their interest?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I know Doug Archie there at Ohio State. Doug and I worked together at the NCAA for several years. He's a
cool,
great human being. Love Doug Archie. And I've never met a compliance person yet that turned down free help. So I guess my message would be just to put yourself out there, encourage them to make contacts, offer to take folks to coffee. That's something that I can tell you at Kentucky, and even when I was at the NCAA, was really super important to me because but for the Heather Likes, the Julie Rose, the Dina Garners, kind of doing those types of things with me, I would not have been able to develop professionally either. So, don't discount that. Reach out, invite to coffee, say, I just would like to pick your brain for 15, 20 minutes about this part of the profession. It sounds real simple, but it makes a difference. And I think it's super important.
Yeah, I've had a lot of those conversations, and it's awesome to see how willing, staff, especially the athletic department, who are already working a crazy amount of hours, are very willing to give time to students. That's great. That's great advice.
I think they know. All of us in athletics know we wouldn't be here if someone would do that for us. And so it's to return that.
That's awesome.
That's really nice. So in terms of what advice would you give to students graduating or even just entering the job, their like a current job market during this kind of COVID-19 pandemic? And how do you think it would affect the job market?
That's a great question. I think I feel like I keep saying, but it really is so important to just continue to try to find ways to build relationships. Even if it's setting up Zoom meetings with folks, how I got into the NCAA, I really think back to it. The opportunity I got there was twofold. One, it was because I had a mentor in my corner who already had existing relationships there that was pushing me and helping me to get that opportunity. So that was valuable. But towards the end of my first year at Ohio State, I also reached out blindly to a couple of folks at the NCAA national office. They were in Indianapolis, right down the road from Columbus, and said, I'd like to take a day and come meet with you, spend 15, 20 minutes and just get to know what you do. And so I met with from ed services and championships and enforcement and all over the map before even I had applied for the internship, and just picking their brain and how they got there, their path, and questions. And I'm convinced that between Heather's help and those meetings, putting my name in front of some folks so that when they saw it as part of the application process, I remember. Yeah, with her. Yeah, a year ago. that really helped. And so even though we're in this social distancing world right now, I think, you can still do a lot of that by Zoom, by call, and there's value to doing that.
And I think that's definitely the great thing about technology nowadays, is that even though like all three of us are in different parts of the country, we're still able to connect and get things done, like you said. So that's always a good thing.
Absolutely.
That's great. This next question is part of a larger conversation that kind of the country is having right now. But what role do you see compliance offices and really athletic departments as a whole in furthering the conversation and making positive changes when it comes to the race and equality issue?
Yeah, that is a great question. And it's, it truly is going to take all of us in that effort. But I think we've really got to listen to our student athletes and let our student athletes lead, because they have some great thoughts, ideas, ideas for development of how that we can implement to actually make some changes on this. And so I think listening to them and to others is so crucial right now. And one good thing is, as you specifically referenced compliance in that, one good thing I found about compliance folks is that we're pretty good listeners. You have to be, right? People have to feel comfortable coming and talking to you about things that sometimes they don't want to talk to you about, or that they've, that they're concerned about. And so I think using those skills, and then, like I said, really letting our student athletes lead as well, and listening to them is going to be vital.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that you kind of pinpointed their growth and leadership. Allowing them to do that is fantastic and frankly very smart, I think.
Oh, cool. Well, that sums up all the formal questions that we have for you. So now we just have a couple fun, light-hearted questions just to hear more about you and just find out a bit more. So the first one is that mentors help and shape who we become in our lives. So who is your role model currently or previously, if it's ever changed?
Yeah, I would have to say it's Julie Rolash. Just watching her as a wife, as a mother, and as a professional in athletics administration for years and years and years. She set a great example for me and so many others. So I would definitely consider her my role model.
Cool.
Awesome. Who was your favorite sports team growing up?
Oh, Kentucky, come on.
Okay.
Not even close.
Reds fan? Not a Reds fan?
Yeah.
Baseball, my husband's a huge Reds fan.
Okay.
Baseball, not so much my thing, but I loved basketball.
Just not the Volunteers. Anyone but the Volunteers.
That's right. That's right.
So the next question is, what is your all-time favorite sporting memory?
Oh my gosh, my all-time favorite, regardless of like not one I participated in, right? Like
anything.
Any.
Oh my gosh, that's so I got to go to the Super Bowl when it was in Indianapolis when I was there.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
And that was a pretty amazing experience. The Super Bowl is like the biggest of the big, right? Like it is
worldwide.
Oh,
yeah.
It's crazy. And so that I definitely, that was kind of a bucket list item to be able to do. So that was pretty cool. The Final Fours at Kentucky, my first 2 years were pretty special. That was fun to be a part of for sure as well. Gosh, so many others. But definitely, I think the Super Bowl, that's probably my favorite sports memory.
That's awesome. We interviewed a Wisconsin grad a few days ago, so he was not too happy about one of the Final Fours.
Oh. Yeah, we weren't.
Yeah. Our last question is, if you weren't working in college athletics or just kind of sports in general, what would you be doing?
Oh, so my husband and I talk about this all the time. So he also played basketball at Berea College.
Oh, cool.
And now we're heavy into the youth basketball scene with our daughters and youth sports team. So we say all the time that if this doesn't work out, we're going to run a youth basketball program, have a facility, do tournaments, that kind of thing. I think that would just be so much fun and a way to give back and to continue to grow the game and encourage young girls to continue playing. I worry about our because basketball for women, basketball is falling in popularity. because they're playing and doing some other things, which is awesome. They've got other opportunities, but since that touches my heart, I worry about that. So continue to try to find ways to grow the game.
Cool. That's awesome. That's very awesome. Well, that was our last question. We just wanted to say thank you for your time today. We just appreciate it so much. And thank you everyone for tuning in to the SMA YouTube channel. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.